From a rural territory of Russia, Kaliningrad is rapidly becoming a new focus of global contention. Before the fight in Ukraine exploded, it was an important Russian military facility. However, recent changes are turning Kaliningrad into Ukraine 2.0, a potential hot zone that can force Baltic countries and throughout Europe into a terrible confrontation. Even in the worst scenario, Kaliningrad might become a fuse for World War III. So, what makes Kaliningrad so important? Let's find out in this video. History and geopolitical relevance of Kaliningrad. Kaliningrad holds strategic and historical significance for Russia, rooted in its unique position and complex past. Established in 1255 as Königsberg by the Teutonic Order during the Baltic Crusades, it became a center of German settlement and influence. Annexed into East Prussia during World War I, Königsberg remained under German control through both World Wars. After World War II, the Potsdam Agreement transferred Königsberg to the Soviet Union, renaming it Kaliningrad in 1946. It became a Soviet exclave for 45 years, inaccessible to foreigners and tightly controlled by Moscow. With the collapse of the Soviet Union, Kaliningrad remained a Russian oblast, providing a key diplomatic and military outpost in Europe and access to warm water ports during winter. Despite its strategic importance, Kaliningrad's separation from mainland Russia presents challenges. Located 1,088 kilometers from Moscow and surrounded by Lithuania and Poland, all Russian supplies must transit these nations, typically via Lithuania. While St. Petersburg offers port access, freezing conditions in winter necessitate alternative routes. This dependency underscores Kaliningrad's vulnerability. Since the Soviet era, Kaliningrad has been a special economic zone, fostering trade with European neighbors and maintaining some economic autonomy. Before the Ukraine war, Russia sent 100 trains monthly through Lithuania to supply Kaliningrad, highlighting its reliance on Moscow. However, its semi-independence and economic ties with Europe have fueled local aspirations for statehood, raising concerns that Kaliningrad could face growing tensions reminiscent of Ukraine. Independent Kaliningrad movement. The national online referendum on National Republic self-determination proved that. The referendum was an online vote staged by many Russian and foreign activist groups from February 16 to 28, 2023. The results were unofficial. Russia would never approve of such a poll because President Vladimir Putin sees any oblast demanding independence as a symptom of Russia's disintegration. It happened despite attempts to stop it, and the results showed a clear Kaliningrad independence design. An astounding 72.1% of voters wanted freedom compared to 27.9% who wanted to stay in Russia. An unofficial vote in Kaliningrad reflects growing discontent with its ties to Russia, highlighting the so-called Kaliningrad question. Surrounded by independent Baltic republics that are now EU members, the exclave is increasingly isolated from Moscow. Journalist Alexei Shabunin notes that many locals feel Kaliningrad is more of an island than a part of Russia, and the Ukraine war has intensified this sentiment. By December 2023, 5,000 of Kaliningrad's 1 million residents had been conscripted, with 450 killed in the conflict. The exclave has also contributed resources to Russia's war effort, but privately, residents desire peace and mistrust Moscow's ability to defend them if tensions escalate with neighboring Baltic states. Many fear that Kaliningrad's survival depends on breaking away from Russia and aligning with European neighbors. Kaliningrad's situation parallels Ukraine's past. Like Ukraine, Kaliningrad was once part of the USSR. While Ukraine gained independence in 1991, Kaliningrad remained tied to Russia. If Kaliningrad were to seek independence, it might provoke a Russian response similar to its actions in Ukraine, potentially making it another flashpoint. Lithuania, a critical gateway between Kaliningrad and Russia, plays a pivotal role. Once a reliable transit partner, Lithuania has significantly restricted Russian access since the Ukraine conflict. In 2023, it passed a law barring most Russian citizens from entering, extended until 2025. Russian ground travel to Kaliningrad now relies on alternative weather-dependent sea routes. Lithuania has also supported Ukraine with $500 million since February 2022 and continues to enforce sanctions against Russia. Its actions, rooted in its history under Soviet rule, position Lithuania as a key player in isolating Kaliningrad. These restrictions, coupled with Kaliningrad's growing unrest, underline the exclave's precarious future and its potential to become Ukraine 2.0. Kaliningrad politics and conflicts. Lithuania's restrictions and Poland's renaming of Kaliningrad highlight tensions that may fuel the exclave's independence movement. As sanctions and travel bans worsen conditions in Kaliningrad, pro-independence sentiment grows, with many residents viewing alignment with the EU and NATO as beneficial. Becoming the fourth Baltic state could offer Kaliningrad expanded European ties, similar to Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. Lithuania's actions have angered Russia, raising the risk of conflict. Should Russia target Lithuania over access to Kaliningrad, it could escalate into a broader war involving NATO, given Lithuania's membership in the alliance. Poland's 2023 decision to officially rename Kaliningrad as Królewicz, its historical Polish name, has added fuel to the independence movement. While Poland framed the renaming as an effort to avoid Russification, Russia labeled it hostile, seeing it as a challenge to its sovereignty over the region. Such moves bolster the narrative of Kaliningrad as an entity separate from Russia, potentially encouraging other nations to follow suit, an outcome Putin seeks to avoid. Kaliningrad's significance to Russia, including its strategic military value, ensures it remains a focal point. However, the growing push for independence, combined with regional tensions, may turn Kaliningrad into the next geopolitical flashpoint akin to Ukraine. Baltic Fleet importance and logistics. Russia's Baltic Fleet is stationed in Baltic, the oblast's lone port. The most recent data shows that the fleet had 55 combat ships of various types in 2008. Several destroyers, corvettes, frigates, landing ships, and 2 submarines were present. About 10% of Russia's naval force is in the fleet, which needs ongoing funding and manpower. Lithuania banned Russian travel again. That decision hinders Russia from providing supplies to the populace and affects the Baltic Fleet in the oblast. As before, St. Petersburg's ports freeze in winter. When that happens, the Baltic Fleet is cut off from Moscow and stuck in Russia's lone warm-water Baltic seaport. Worse, being cut off from Kaliningrad undermines Russia's Baltic Sea control. This is especially true now that Finland, another longtime Russian foe, is a NATO member. With that membership, NATO has expanded its border along the Baltic Sea, prompting some to nickname it a NATO lake. Another lake NATO may use to separate Kaliningrad from Russia. How does that relate to Ukraine? Russia faced a similar scenario with Ukraine years before invading. Kaliningrad hosted the Baltic Fleet, while Sevastopol hosted the Black Sea Fleet south. Sevastopol is in Crimea, which caused Russia problems after the Soviet Union dissolved. Similarities between Crimea and Kaliningrad. Ukraine's acquisition of Crimea and the subsequent 1997 partition treaty between Russia and Ukraine granted Russia 9 out of 11 Black Sea Fleet ships and a lease on the Sevastopol base. In return, Russia paid Ukraine $526 million and agreed to respect Ukraine's sovereignty. The base was crucial for Russia's access to the Black Sea and a warm water port. However, the lease was threatened by Ukraine's political shifts. In 2010, President Yanukovych renewed the lease until 2042, but after his ousting in 2014, Russia seized Crimea and claimed Sevastopol, ending the lease issue. Ukraine blocked Russia's land access to Crimea, prompting Russia to build the Crimean Bridge, which opened in 2018 and became vital for transporting goods and military supplies. Ukraine has since targeted the bridge, with further attacks expected. Russia faces a similar dilemma with Kaliningrad, as it cannot easily access the exclave without passing through Lithuania, which has imposed sanctions. Kaliningrad houses Russia's Baltic fleet and Iskander missiles, some with nuclear capabilities. Putin may see taking Lithuania as the only way to restore full access to Kaliningrad, but NATO's Article 5 protection for Lithuania makes such an action risky, as it would trigger a response from all NATO members. Putin would face more than Lithuania if he attacked Lithuania. He would draw the UK, France, Germany, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania's Baltic neighbors, and, most significantly, the US, into the war. None of these countries have been directly involved in the Ukraine war because Ukraine isn't a NATO member. Only money and supplies have been sent. Lithuania would have to respond militarily to a Russian strike, which might start a war. The Kaliningrad situation is precarious. Even if the exclave's independence movement is becoming stronger by the month, it's still Russian territory. It also has alarming similarities to Ukraine, particularly in how Kaliningrad replicates Russia's land access concerns with Sevastopol. Poland, among others, is treating Kaliningrad as an independent state, which Moscow must deal with. However, several variables may keep Putin in check. NATO is a parent. Russia is unlikely to take Lithuania to reopen ground access to Kaliningrad because it doesn't want a global war with its strongest enemy. Additionally, the Ukraine war and its aftermath are uncertain. Could Russia restore its relationship with the Baltic states to allow free access to Kaliningrad if it wins? Time will tell. We'll hand it over for now. Thanks for watching the video finale. Kaliningrad, a lesser-known country, is becoming a worldwide flashpoint and maybe Europe's future. The developments here could lead to unimaginable disasters. Will Ukraine 2.0 be Kaliningrad? How will Europe's future look? Watch our next videos for updates and unpopular secrets.